In this episode of the Exploring Information Security podcast, exploring the next frontier of IAM, shared signals, and data analytics.
Computers now have primary control of critical functions.
Houston, recommend vector transfer.
Your go for APU shutdown on time.
Roger, go for deploy.
Nice to be in orbit.
I am your host, Timothy D. Block, and in this episode, we'll be exploring the next frontier of identity access management, shared signals, and data analytics with Mr. Matt Topper, the president and CTO of Uber Ether. Show notes can be found at exploresec.com/EIS. Feedback for the show, timothy.dblock@exploresec.com. You can also hit me up on LinkedIn. You can rate the podcast on your favorite podcast platform. You can join our community. Yes, we are starting a community. If you go to exploresec.com and click on the community button, you will find a Discord invite link. You can also join our listserv where I will be promoting some of the stuff going on within ExploreSec. And then you can also check out meetup.com for any sort of live events. Every third Tuesday, we try to do a live podcast recording where if you're on the listserv, you can get invited to the live podcast recording, and join in on the fun. So this was a good one. I haven't done a lot of identity access management themed episodes. I'd like to change that. Matt was a really great guest to come on and talk about that. We talk about a little bit about everything with zero trust, shared signals, data analytics, kind of, just where the IAM field is heading. Identity has just kind of exploded. It's similar to a lot of incident response, security operation jobs where you just need a lot of these folks to help manage all the different identities that are out there. We kind of dive into a lot of those different topics. So, again, really great conversation. It was a pleasure to have Matt on. With that, let's just go ahead and get into it. Where are you at?
So I'm just outside Detroit, so halfway between Detroit and Ann Arbor.
Okay. Yeah, I know. I don't know if you get involved in any of the MySec stuff, but I know a lot of the guys that are involved in that. So that's a really great group of people that I got to know.
Yeah. So how'd you get involved with those guys?
Oh God, that's a great question. Probably from DerbyCon. I don't know if you ever went to DerbyCon. It's back in, I started getting back into the conference scene in like 2015. And I actually spoke at my first DerbyCon there. It was like one of those early track courses, first time speaker type of things. And just, I'd met some people from like, I don't know, it all starts from like B-sides, just different B-sides events and things like that. And then DerbyCon met some other people. I don't know if you know, like Kyle Andrus.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's one of my favorites on this podcast too. But met him, Chris Madalena, who's actually now in Seattle, Daniel Ebbett. There's several other people up there that I've gotten involved. I've become friends with, and went up and did like Converge when they were doing that, and B-sides Detroit and other stuff. So
we probably have been in the same rooms together then.
Yeah, no, it's a small world. I mean, I don't think people realize like how small cybersecurity is, and like how you and I maybe have never met, but we've probably crossed paths, either being in the same room or we clearly know some of the same people, which is always great to chat about.
Yeah, Brad McMahon works for us, and he ran the Converge CTF for a couple of years. Yep.
No, that name sounds familiar. Yeah, so that's a great community. It's good that we actually know some people that are together. So I got you on to talk about, really, I think it's like zero trust. I get all these, it's funny, I get all these AI pitches now for guests, and I don't accept everybody. So, but you came on and I was like, I haven't done anything on identity access management. Zero trust 2 is a whole thing in itself, but kind of want to take a step back, right, and talk about like identity access management, because I was looking at my podcast episodes and it's like exploring different things, and I'm like, I've never done anything on identity access management. So,
well, half the time I think people still think it's compliance, right, from the old all the way back to the Enron shit of like, oh, we got to make sure that these people are in these roles and the account payer and the account receiver can't be the same person. So it's not security. It's just compliance shit. Nobody cares about GRC.
Right. But I mean, it's also kind of it's become its own thing, and I think a lot of that is just because of the growth of everything, right? The internet and I realized this back in 2016 is when I moved to Nashville, and it's like you start getting into these cloud environments, and it's very different from Active Directory. I don't know how far back you go, but not, NT 4.0 is when I started creating my first set of users, right? And it's just one login for that network, but now it's kind of exploded, and it's like federated access and all this other, and zero trust, which has also been around for a while. I don't think people realize that was the key buzzword probably 10 years ago, but it's been around for a lot longer than that.
Yeah. It's I was like Novell Network admin.
Okay. Yep.
So yeah.
I did eDirectory too. Yeah. That was some good stuff.
Yeah, and NIST Plus directories, trying to tie it back into LDAP, and that's right how you try and go across your Linux servers, and then the bridge to 80 never worked. So you'd end up managing both accounts, and now it's just single sign-on everywhere, and you don't really know how to get people to sign out. And then we all now get to create personal access tokens to create and call APIs, and well, guess what? Those are just like passwords. And I don't know, all the breaches we see today are either user account compromises or OAuth token compromises. That's how they exfil the data so quick.
Well, it's the easiest way in too, right? I've argued that security tooling has just gotten so much better nowadays that it's not. I mean, we are seeing kind of the cycle of coming back around to vulnerabilities and other stuff, but it's still in general, right? They're either social engineering people looking for data breaches, and then using those credentials to get in. If you get in with a legitimate account, that's where you can do a lot of damage, whether it's pivoting or just getting the access you need.
Yeah. Did you follow all the like Shiny Hunter stuff with Crimson Crusaders or whatever the fuck they're calling themselves this week?
Did they combine three? They combined three group names. It's like Shiny Hunter, Laspis, Scattered Spider.
Yeah. And so I'm in some of those Telegram channels, and I think, it was all the same guys and just different groups and started naming them the same things. They're like, all right, we're not going to correct anyone. The miscorrection actually helps us. So, but as part of last Friday was when the Salesforce and the Red Hat stuff was supposed to get dropped if the ransoms hadn't gotten paid. But in those Telegram channels, they were just advertising now that if you're inside of a company and you give them your credentials, they will give you 10% of the bounty they collect at the end, right? Like just that internal access, they're willing to pay employees of the company who are already on the inside. Some of these at millions and millions of dollars. I think the bounty on the Salesforce one and Red Hat ones were 500 million. 10% of that's plenty for that dude to retire for a long, long time. And right.
Well, it's not even that. There was a case where a guy gave up his access for like $5,000. So I was going to make the point that people aren't going to necessarily know what their access is worth. Like when you're talking about percentage is great, right? But not everybody's going to negotiate that. You throw someone that's maybe disgruntled and doesn't understand the law entirely, and the fact that they could get tracked down and prosecuted by law enforcement, they'll give it up for several $1,000s.
Yeah, I forget. Somebody's recently was their outsourced call center in the Philippines, right? They just targeted those people, and then they got access to support systems and downloaded all of the HAR files, right? The browser exports of developer console, pulled the cookies out of those, and then use those to gain access.
That's wild. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's not even technical. So it's not even technical people anymore, right? It's just kids that know how to social engineer. And one of the kids, I think from one of the groups, I think he's actually getting prosecuted, but he had a very deep sounding voice. So he sounded a lot older than he was.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, helpless people, they're right. They want to be helpful and they want to solve problems. And they're you can give them so much anxiety on the call as an attacker, they're going to forget their own script and forget their own validation, because you're like, I did this once to a CISO at a government agency, because they've got the idea that, oh, we take your CAP card away or your PIV card away from you. Now you can't log in anymore. And I was sitting there and basically selling the identity and access management program and why, that's great, you're taking this away, but I can still get into the systems. And he's like, absolutely not, no fucking way. So I, as a dick, ripped it out of the machine, threw it at him across the desk, and I said, so I can't log in now? He's like, no, how are you going to get in? I go, okay. And I just went, don't say a word, and gave this guy the shush finger. I called the help desk and I said, hey, I'm about to start a meeting with Dr. Z and I left my PIV at home. Is there any way you can just give me a password for today so I can give this presentation, get into my laptop? I just started building that anxiety. And I knew what the scripts were supposed to be because I had helped write them, but it just said, I'm on a time crunch. And they just forgot the script. Said, yeah, no worries, man. What's your username? They didn't even try and validate who I was with any of the knowledge-based access. They just wanted me to be able to succeed for the day. Right?
Yeah.
We all know it.
Yeah.
And then we take as how easy it is to fake someone's voice now and how much of our data has been leaked. It's pretty easy to build a synthetic on anyone.
Yeah. Yeah, no, yeah, that's the whole. Yeah, it's I don't know. That's why I think identity it is kind of grown. We talked about GRC, and it's kind of grown into this. It's its own department now. I don't even see you have incident response. I work in security awareness. You got security engineering. IAM is its own thing, and it needs a massive amount of people. I think AI can help with some of that stuff, but you're talking about. And that's not, I don't even know if that's what we're talking about here. Cause that's why I pay attention to it, right? Is I need to worry about the service desk and make sure they're trained up on some of the latest techniques so that, they're not giving up access. So it's not, I don't even know if that's an identity access manager problem. That's just more of a procedural and GRC problem, I guess, at that point.
Yeah. But it's hard as shit because you go to the HR system, you're okay, tell me your home address. Well, that KVA is gone for pretty much everyone. Or give me your zip code. Give me your social security last four. Okay, if I'm a good attacker, there's a Telegram bot for all of that already, right? And you have to start building in push notifications or the same thing with your credit card company of a callback to the person of a known good number. And then you get into the whole, people get anxious of well, I'm not giving my company my personal cell phone number unless they pay for it, right? All that bullshit where you're just hey, did you like working from home? You could come into the office otherwise, right? You got to give up some of that. But you get into all these weird situations of how do you really verify? And I got a buddy who actually started a company called NetArcs, and it's literally watching Google Meet, watching Zoom, and looking at people's indicators of their normal behavior patterns, and then using SIG4 and that type of stuff from all the HPS connections, and really trying to figure out, okay, if this person's you have them open up a Zoom, how much is it really done behind the keyboard? So it's Wild West right now.
Yeah, well, and I mean, everyone talks about the defects and other stuff, but how do you think AI can help the defense side of it, right? How I feel it could help. And I feel we are. It's funny. It's a bit of a catch-22, right? Because you talk about social engineering, service desk, but there's people already doing it with chatbots, right? Someone took over Amazon's chatbots and was having to do stuff that it wasn't supposed to do. So I feel you could replace some of these service desk people with a chatbot, but then it's well, then they can just be social engineered.
Yep. Yeah, and the chatbots, they can be, but also they're just writing scripts in ChatGPT and Claude to say, hey, I've got this web page for Google single sign-on, right? Mimic it, make a fake one. They're doing man-in-the-middle attacks, fully automated, just using these tools to replicate the pages a lot. So it's other than having a here's personal information, call back and verify that the person's on the other side of the phone and pray they haven't had a SIM attack, right? Other than that, you're getting into physical, everyone's going to have a YubiKey at this point, or some kind of authenticator app on their personal or issued phones. There's no there's no cheap validation device anymore that, right? Like the old RSA token shit, right? No one wants to carry those around, but like we've got some customers that are in like healthcare clean rooms where they're carrying around. Do you remember the old password cards where like it was on the day of the week and then the month? Right. And then
I never had to use them, but I can totally see that being a thing, right? Yeah.
And that's basically your seed that you just follow like the table layout and go, oh, that's a picture of a dinosaur.
Mm-hmm.
Then you take that card, put the picture of the dinosaur on, and then type your current password. And because they can't carry a physical device into the clean rooms. Like versus before, they were literally hiring an intern on the outside of like the clean room, and they'd go through like the big blowdown door to get all the germs and shit off of them. Unlock their phones, leave them in like this little cubby. They'd walk over to the workstation and give the thumbs up to the intern to hit the yes on the like Okta MFA thing. Like it's so screwy.
Yeah. Well, and you said YubiKeys and I think YubiKeys are great. Now, I will say like as soon as everybody's on YubiKeys, because we've seen this, there'll be people finding ways around it. And there's already been one case. Now, it wasn't the YubiKey itself. It was more of a configuration thing. But that's just another bit of complexity. And we realize, too, a lot of us aren't very good at configuring this stuff. Like, we have certain ways we should, but there's, just it's getting more complicated. And I don't know. I'm coming to the point, and I've been in this industry long enough. It's like, I don't know if this is ever solvable because someone will always find we secure one thing or address one problem. And then they kind of just shift to some other place, and it's just a constant cat and mouse game. Yeah,
it really becomes a lot of times the additive signals across all of the applications and services. Right, we've got to say Microsoft Defender on an endpoint. How many times does the SOC team and the identity team not talk to each other? That I can get an indicator of if the machine that person is on is protected by your Microsoft Defender or not. But I guarantee you in 90% of organizations, that control is not implemented anywhere, right? And just having for the help desk, hey, they're on a machine that we manage, know, and maintain, and I can prove that right now when they're calling in versus not. Or, hey, I know they're on a phone we protect, but not a machine we protect. Maybe, they're on vacation, their kid threw it in the pool and they were logging in to fix something. But those context signals really between the SOC teams and the identity teams aren't coming together fast enough. And that's, to me, where the biggest value is going to come from. Because it is fully attacker, defender at all the different pieces. And we just have to have more data.
Well, and you're talking about something that requires asset management, and it's just like you talk to some of these organizations, it's like, we have no idea where everything's at or who's using what, or even a something as basic as the same naming convention, because you could see one and then you're like, what's that computer?
Yeah, like we've got a FedRAMP High, the Impact Level 5 environment, and we even said we're not going to bother with our corporate laptops being part of that as the machines that access it. We're just going to run private workstations, VDIs inside of the environment. So then we don't have to do all of that asset management piece and make everyone in the company comply with it. You just isolate this shit because it's a nightmare. And then you start rolling in business partners who federate into you. You have no idea of their machines, right? We worked at DHS headquarters, and multiple times I had to call the FBI over at CGIS and tell them, hey, your directory's been compromised again. We're getting logins of people going places they've never gone before, over and over and over again. And now they're coming in scripted and automated. You got to go check your shit. We're going to turn you off today. But most orgs, they're not thinking about that. They're just like, I got a tenant trust with Microsoft between my two Entra domains. We're good.
Well, that's the other thing. I mean, you can handle your own stuff internally, but then it's like the third parties, like you said, with the Salesforce, right? And it's not just, I don't know that this is our problem, but if you're using a vendor that was part of the Salesforce breach, there's no control out of that outside of third party. You're a third party risk person. Right. It's It's a
We got a lot
very
of stuff to do. At least we'll be employed for a while.
yeah, we will. It's become more of an industry too, right? And I'm not talking our industry. I'm talking about the cyber criminal side of it. It's become big money, and they're getting into it, but they're almost turning into their own business. Well, they are turning into their own business. They've got their own HR company, HR departments. They've got their own marketing. They got the executives at the top with the same amount of ego as the executives of legitimate company, maybe a little bit worse. They got crappy work environments for all the people down at the lower levels of the organization. The interview process is interesting. I imagine it's a little bit easier to get into a cyber criminal. Well, I guess I did recently read now that they've switched to child pornography as part of a justification because no federal agent can carry that and use that as proof of being a bad, which is still crappy. That's just awful.
Right.
But they're doing the same thing. They're trying to protect their own stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said, it is fully a business at this point, right? There's one person will sell to another group, then initial access, and then that group will then take those credentials and give it to a group who's really good at doing internal recon without getting caught, then go, oh, they've got they're using PeopleSoft or Oracle eBiz is the one that we saw a week, 2 ago. Like, oh, who knows that stuff? Okay, now we're going to go get somebody to try and pivot on that. And then they all just split the earnings at the end of the day. And they all realize that, essentially, the shiny lapsus hunters, at this point, they're literally selling themselves as the centralized trusted authority when you've got breach data, because they've worked with so many companies at this point that they can trust, the companies that are being ransomed and the companies that big companies go to manage the ransom know them well enough in the way they do business from a trust perspective that if you give your data to them, there's a higher chance that they're going to pay out. Right? That's a freaking business model.
Well, the other thing I was talking to somebody else about is the negotiators in between. Some of them are getting a cut from the bad guys too, because like you said, they've built that relationship up. So it's now you have to question your negotiator and the company you're using because they might be in bed with the bad guys.
Yeah. It's amazing. I'm not sure there's a fix.
Yeah. Again, like I said, I think it's the cat and mouse game, like we've kind of already talked about there. Yeah, I don't know what the fix is. We've kind of drifted away from the identity access management portion here, but so what is zero trust like? And is this something that can help protect us from what we've just kind of discussed, this wild west?
So to me, zero trust is, as you said earlier, right? It's been around more than 10 years. I joke, and looking at the patterns, a lot of the stuff that is the leading stuff that is being done now is stuff we did 20 years ago in highly secure environments. And while it's been kind of that big buzzword for the last 5 years, I see too many organizations implementing what I just call VPN 2.0. Right? We're just going to have this new client that goes on our machine to connect to all of our services that we were connecting to anyways. And sometimes it's better because we can do a mesh versus a single concentrator, but they're not looking across all of those other pillars of, okay, that's cool. We've got a client here. Maybe it's talking to something like our endpoint security now. Probably not, because most of the time they're just deploying this new piece of software. I'm not seeing device, user, machine to machine, all of those pieces actually being linked together to get to the better solution. And it's just, I personally think, way too network centric still. That really isn't solving problems for organizations that have gone multi-cloud or gone SaaS based all over the place. It's going to be another buzzword that came and went, and we all went, there's a chance to fix things, and the marketing guys got us instead of actually getting the funding to get things built and solved. Like,
Well, I mean, zero trust was it's a strategy, right? Like you said, it's used in like high classified areas where it's properly set up. People are taking it's. I mean, it kind of does go back to this is something I'm finding more and more again in my older age is what's the actual risk versus the worth the squeeze on the is the juice worth the squeeze on that? Because you're right, it's hard, it's tough to tackle. It's not just a networking thing, right? It's like it's tying all that stuff together, that asset management we talked about, but then it's also like role-based access. Like, do you actually need access to this? And that can change, position to position. I argued like one of the first things I want to do when my manager gets promoted or, moves into a higher role, it's like, we need to take his access. He doesn't need to be looking at my dashboards anymore. I don't need him going in there. I've had this happen to me. I went into management and I went and tried to do something for one of my guys. And he said, don't ever do that again. I have to undo what you did. Like, I got it working properly, but it wasn't the proper way to do it. And he's like, I have to undo what you did. So you've just doubled my work versus you just waiting, a little extra longer for me to get there. Right. But I mean, that's just an example of what I need access to and how it's like constantly evolving and changing. So I think that also makes zero trust very difficult to accomplish.
Yeah. And like you said, it's constantly changing. And it also changes based on people joining and leaving the organization where, it is a separation of duty if I can have accounts payable and accounts receivable. But sometimes there's just two people in the company. And if one of them decides to go somewhere else and it takes 3 months to rehire them, well, that AP and AR person has to be the same for that 3 months. And nobody's going to go right compensating controls. There's like, you get the role, you get both roles right now, and just be good. And the vendors don't help us either, right? At the end of the day, they all build security embedded in their own products, which also gives them an ability to upsell additional tools and technologies to you rather than having a more open ecosystem where things can plug together. So I'm at least hopeful, right? Some of the bigs like Microsoft, Google, Salesforce are investing in things like shared signals, where I don't know if you've seen kind of the shared signals framework, but you've got risk controls, you've got like identity controls of, hey, by the way, I'm the identity provider for this person, and we know there's a credential compromise. So we're going to tell you, Salesforce, that we want you to revoke all of their sessions right now, because we want them to force a reauthentication event for the new credential, just in case the attacker has compromised it another way. Or, Salesforce would say, hey, Matt's been coming from this IP address all day long, and then all of a sudden he's on this new IP after 15 minutes. Well, maybe I just went to the coffee shop and started working from there, but it gives Salesforce a way to send a message back up to my company, and then my company can make a decision, be like, whatever, the IP address is a coffee shop within X amount of distance from his home, or, oh shit, that's coming from China. And it's not through our VPN 2.0 concentrator that CloudFront, Cloudflare routing you throughout the world. It's a malicious IP. Okay, then kill that session, right? That's at least giving us some of the better controls back and forth between orgs.
Yeah, I haven't heard of the shared signals framework. What's is that like open source? Is that from an organization?
So, in typical fashion, I always, it's one of my biggest problems with the identity community. Those of us that do it full time is because a lot of people that grew up in the GRC side of the world, or like the HR or the help desk of onboarding people and getting them access. Not a lot of the people in the industry grew up on the security side of the world, nor did they grow up as developers. So it came out of the OpenID Foundation, which everyone recognizes as the login with Google button, right? Like that's what OpenID is under the covers, or login with Microsoft button. But it grew up from a bunch of folks that were working at Amazon, that they were working at Salesforce, they were working at ServiceNow. And they were like, we've got all of this good data internally that we know a lot of times when an account's been compromised on one of their users, but we've got no way to tell them. or we've got to come up with custom one-off APIs that, right, everything's a bespoke solution. That's not going to work. So it was kind of and then, right, as it came back as, oh, well, these are things on the users that we know that we want to tell the companies. It kind of fell to the identity guys to go figure out who to go help figure out how to solve it. So, grew up out of the OpenID Foundation, and I think there's like 40 plus vendors, like big size vendors supporting it at this point.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, and I think that's the way to do it, right? Like you talk about different signals from different things that, especially in this AI world, right? You don't have to configure stuff. It's just have AI go through that stuff and tell you, hey, like you said, this coffee shop is very different from, the Sweden VPN that probably shouldn't, or even if you have a VPN that you use out of Sweden, it's not a normal place that they come from. And I feel like it's, you look at sports and Moneyball and data analytics. I think we're going to get there at some point. It's just sports is a very, I think, very forward thinking industry is around a lot of that stuff because there's such a competitive advantage to a lot of that stuff. And then there's just a lot of money involved in that. And so I think we'll get there eventually, but you're right. Like, I think that is kind of the path forward. And I've been hearing about, user behavior analytics for the last 10 years too. But I've never seen anybody actually able to get them in place properly because these vendors want to focus on zero trust or just selling me something that's, that might fix one piece of the problem here and not the entire problem.
Yeah. And it's a weird problem set to solve, right? Because at the end of the day, you've got to do user behavior analytics, you've either got to put essentially JavaScript on the front door of every one of your applications because, right, layer 3, layer 4 signals aren't enough, especially, right, most of the organizations have reverse proxies that they're not carrying the headers backwards through the chains to figure out not only the user, but the devices and the IPs and where they're coming from. Like, it just gets lost because, right, they bought some tool that doesn't support it, or like the developers just deprioritize that in the code and said, we got features to roll, security doesn't matter. And then, so you're ending up having to put it in all of your applications at layer 7, right, in JavaScript and pulling data from the browser and doing it that way. That gets painful because then every application has to have it, or you've got to at least have a script reference inside of it. Or the other way that I've actually seen more successful is building as a browser plugin. And a lot like a browser extension inside of Chrome that just sits there. And I'm seeing it's weird where it's coming from, but like a lot of the password vendors, right, like 1Password and Keeper Security, they're starting to build that in because they're looking at every page and they're sitting there and already saying, okay, is this page actually google.com or mail.google workspaces that you're logging into, or is it a phish site? So they're capturing the traffic, they're capturing those URLs to then say, okay, do I have a password to put in here? Is it malicious or not? But now they're getting all of that traffic and going, oh, now I'm understanding user behaviors. Now, if I had that and tied that to the GRC system in that company of people with similar roles, right, those patterns start to really emerge of what a normal workday behavior for someone looks like, or they're browsing TikTok all day.
Yeah. Well, and where does that live? And I'm going to kind of preface some of this as well, too, because I could see it living in IAM. I could see, like, it's funny, the organization itself, I've seen multiple data analytics groups get spun up in an organization because they're like, data, we're going to do stuff. We got to do big data stuff. And then nothing really ever comes out of those departments. And I don't know if I want to say that cybersecurity should have their own data person focused on data analytics, but to your point, that needs to happen somewhere. I actually think because security awareness is shifting over to human risk management, where you're getting simulated phish data. So we've already got a rich data set there as far as like, what are they going to fall for from a simulated phish standpoint? And then you can pull in things from your Windows Defender, your EDR vendor, their browsing habits, where are they going? And I feel like, because that's where security awareness is moving, is to more of like a human risk. Where do I need to focus my time training these people? If this person is really good at, then I don't know that I need to worry about them as much as this person that struggles with every sort of simulated phish. But I don't want to say, because I'm in that own bubble, I just curious where you see kind of some of this user behavior data analytics would actually live.
So I'm 100% on board with you. Like security data lakes, right, is one of the terms I've heard used. Like there's always great intentions, but you're taking security guys and trying to make them data analytics guys.
Right. Yeah.
You're taking data analytics guys, trying to make them security guys, and not actually building a true good mesh team with time to learn each other's quirks, right? It's always seems, at least the organizations I've worked with, seems to be this like, throw it together, we need it quick. And then it loses the attention of the executives and the funding, and then, right, it just kind of peters out. But the weird places I've seen it really succeed is when you take identity and that behavior analytics challenges and you sell it to the marketing team, right? Whatever they're actually selling in that organization, like if it's pizzas or if it's clothes online, you go, hey, I can give you a better way to track the user and what they're looking at, and also tell you if they're fraudulent or not, so that you're going to save X amount in chargebacks, right? Like, and then, oh, those guys got money because they're the marketing team that makes the company more money. If you sell them, then you might get some real dollars to make these things happen. It does turn into an interesting opposite, which I never thought I'd run into in security, but like we were working for one of the big pizza orgs, and there's a thing on, I keep saying Twitter, but it's X now, and it's only been, 3 years since.
I still call it Twitter. I'm not calling it anything else. Yeah.
All right, we're on the same team then. But there's something called pizza hacks. So like all these companies have rewards programs where if you order 5 pizzas, you get a free one, right? Like, so they're taking like the hacked username and password data and being like, oh, I've got this account and they've got 3 free pizzas. You give me $3 or $5, I'll send a pizza to your door. So, right, they were starting to see this, and it's like, okay, that could be really easy to figure out. Hey, if somebody's logging into an account and shipping it to an address they've never shipped a pizza to before, that's not in their home state, send them a text message and make them send the 6-digit code back, right? Or an email, whatever they put in as their contact info. And like, okay. And it was like, $15 million a year that this company was having to basically give away in free pizzas. And that was their cost, not like the retail price of the pizza. And then, so we put it in place, and just as simple as putting in okay, we've got your phone number, we're going to text you and give us the 6-digit code. They saw so many people abandon their carts and not complete the purchase that were legitimate. After 3 months, they went, fuck it. We're just going to roll it back and eat the cost every year, because we're seeing more people just say, I'm going to go order a pizza from somewhere else, or, oh, that was too much interference. I'm just like,
yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
But right, one of the things we always do with customers, back to the data quality thing, is right, because identity's making that authentication authorization decision on the roles that people are getting, or why in this position they're getting it or not. And right, the help desk gets the call, I can't log into this, identity's broken. And I was like, well, identity's not broken. The source system we got it from is just shit. Because, right, it's been an HR system that's been upgraded 3 different times over 20 years, and no one ever completed that data migration properly. So one of the things we do at all of our customers is we call it the who service, right? And it's always just if they've got a login.company.com, it's login.company.com/who or who.company.com. You just go there, and when you're logged in, it's here's everything we know about you. And if anything on this page is wrong, here's the help desk number or the email for that source system we got it from. Blame them to go fix it. Don't blame us. And then we give that same thing to the help desk when people log in, to be able to say, oh, are you really in this position? Or are you really have this training? Or a lot of times, people not taking their annual awareness training, they get locked out of systems. Oh, did you take your training or not? And they just centralize all of that. But yeah, that data quality thing is it solves so many of the problems, and just making it easy to expose the problems to individuals and give them a way to help themselves fix it solves a lot.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't even think about the data quality problem because I've seen a lot of AD environments that it's like we need to,
Right.
there's no standardization because new people come in, they didn't, whatever. That's a whole thing in itself.
I mean, the
Um,
Christmas planning party from 2023 group is the way you get access to all your privileged Linux servers, right? You go get a
yeah,
membership in that Christmas planning team to
yeah,
get access. Like,
yeah,
that's what
yeah.
most ADs look like to me.
Yeah, well, I mean, I love the person that's been there for, 14, 15 years and they've got 80, they're in their own 80 groups and new person comes on, like, just give this person the same access. And you're like, no, we can't, no, can't do that.
Right.
Yeah. I did like the idea though of the data analytics going to the marketing team. I think further just confirms to me that security awareness could be a disciplined position to help with a lot of this stuff. Now the problem is that there's not a lot of companies that have security, like they have security awareness, but they don't have like a department necessarily to handle a lot of this different stuff. Because I've been in security awareness for just under 2 years now, and it's like I'm learning more about marketing, like actually how to get people to pay attention to my stuff, which is the same. Like I feel like I'm a little bit ahead because I've studied social engineering as well too, and I know it gets people clicking on stuff. But that's just an interesting way to look about it and how to like, because you're right, marketing, even for an internal company, I was thinking about this while you're talking, right? It's not just retail. Retail, it doesn't surprise me that they're really interested in that stuff. But internal marketing teams still want to connect with their employees internally. So those user behavior data analytics can absolutely give them some sort of insight into, kind of I feel like a lot of them are kind of just guessing or going based on like user views and things like that.
Yeah. Or, and some of the things that I've seen work there too is like you take that data of like, okay, why do people spend this amount of time on pages, or getting even like the 404s back or the 500 errors back, and then being able to turn that into, with the marketing teams and internal teams, like where are our processes broken, right? So as silly it is those page clicks, those page flows give them the data to be able to know like, oh, why the hell do tickets sit in this queue for 2 weeks at a time? Well, because it's actually sitting there waiting, going to that system and that system and that system before it can come back and move the ticket. Maybe we can do a business process re-engineering, and then right, magically things that seem stuck for years get unstuck because they've got the data to see the flow.
What's something you'd like to plug?
So the big thing I'm starting to see and push is just the non-human identity side of the problem. Right? We saw the SalesLoft drift and them stealing the API keys. And then that's how all of the Salesforce data got leaked and right, for an organization as big as Salesforce, even to go, oh, we don't know what IP addresses that SalesLoft connects to us from, or SalesLoft didn't have their own API key that right, they used, right? They have to identify themselves first, and then they have to identify with the customer keys that we've been provided. It's like, no, they're just customer keys that are like 12-digit strings, and we'll just take it from anywhere. And I think we all know most organizations internally, like there's not, in many cases, a lot of authentication between the APIs and services. It's just, oh, I know where that endpoint exists, or, oh, I know I'll call Joe to get a key for that thing. Most organizations are not paying attention. And with right, the rise of AI, the rise of MCP servers, and people trying to write these things very quickly, patterns are broken. And we're going to see some massive leaps. And I think we've already seen some of them. If you really want to dig into like the GitHub MCP problem that was quickly hidden after a couple days from about 2 months ago. So organizations really need to start focusing on mapping their non-human identities and understanding what is talking to what in that context. And the same way that user behavior analytics on humans, you kind of have to start doing the same thing on non-humans too. And because of what those API keys give access to, the bounties are much bigger than getting data to the access map can access. It's the data that everyone from that organization can access with a lot of these keys. And they're running unchecked.
Yeah, so clarify what a non-human identity is. So you've already said it. One is like token, API tokens. What are some other examples?
Yeah, so you've got your devices, so your endpoint devices, your mobile devices, you've got your servers, your services that run on the server. So one of the patterns we like a lot is if you're running in a data center or you're running in an AWS cloud environment, or even like you're running your pipelines to push new software updates, like, hey, we know for sure that our runners that build this software run on these 3 Kubernetes clusters, or they run on these physical pieces of hardware. Or we can go look up at AWS and say, give me all the things that are tagged with GitLab. And then from there, we can trust that machine and know that it's at least governed by our org. And then that machine gets a certificate or a JOT token that can then transform to a token to deploy software. So you build that whole security supply chain from the hardware, testing that hardware, testing the software on it, all the way on up. So it's really anything that needs to connect to anything else instead of just whitelisting, allow listing, IP addresses and IP address ranges and praying that no one's broken in. It's building that strong, and then those tokens rotate every 4 hours, so they have to or however long your risk is, but have to continue to test to get the next cert, the next key, to then be able to continue to connect, which then forces attackers to have to stay persistent, because the key they steal is only good for X amount of time. If they want to keep going across the network, they've got to still sit on that server or still sit within that device, right? We all know it's easier to find an attacker that has to stay persistent in our environments to continue to get access rather than someone that can run away and then attack from anywhere in the world.
Yeah, so back to the sales, like SalesLoft to me is like a plugin for Salesforce, right? And there's plugins for everything now, not just your browser. It's for your third-party vendors. They have all their plugins that have, because it wasn't SalesLoft just like a chatbot or something.
Yeah. It aggregates from like your HR system, your CRM system, your HubSpot marketing systems, and just brings the data together and then gives a chatbot. So, but because they have to go and crawl all these data sources to get basically build your frequently asked questions to put into the chatbot, like they get carte blanche to a lot of shit. I always joke when Anthropic put out MCP, which is the Model Context Protocol, which is like the new API for chat for AI tools. The spec they put out, the security section was literally listed as whack to do. Like they put this huge spec, how machines and humans are going to act, how machines and machines are going to interact, and the whole security section was just listed as to do. We'll figure it out later. And some of the first patterns, because what was happening is these chatbots were either using API keys on behalf of a user, getting a personal access token, or like connecting to a website and scraping it to get the data. The first ones that were coming out were like, oh, here's how to automatically go into your browser and export your cookies to hand off to the AI to go do the work for you. And I'm just like, right, you're still letting the cattle out of the barn at that point. And if that's your pattern, you're screwed. And sadly, even with some of the OAuth patterns today that they're doing as a reflector as they've updated the specs, it's still a mess. So that's where I think all the next set of breaches are coming from.
Yeah. It's gonna be interesting. And so your company Uber Ether handles a lot of that stuff or helps people.
Yeah. So history essentially is I ran the identity access management team for Oracle's national security groups with the U.S. 3-letter IC agencies. Learned I didn't like working for big companies with billionaires, and started my own, and really have focused on it for the last 14 years. And every time there's a problem in government and a government person kind of calls their peer at another agency and goes, why does your identity program actually work well? And you don't bitch about it all the time like all the rest of us. A lot of times it's us under the covers that are doing all of the work. And from there, I've built it out to like kind of just building it right from day one and pre-integrating the tools so people don't have to repeat the pains we've hit.
Yeah. I mean, that's always the pitch, right? If you do it right at the beginning, then you don't have to try and bolt on or deal with stuff that's, gonna cause issues with the business after the fact. So yeah, for sure. Cool. Well, Matt, thank you for joining me to discuss identity. I mean, you're in a really good space with the company too, because it's like we just talked about it. I feel like it was a lot more doom than anything, but it's good to hear. I think, companies like yours and other people are going to come out that try to help and solve some of these problems.
Yeah. And if folks want to learn more or like want to teach me about the other side of the world, and be like, dude, we got all this shit over here with all this data that you could be using and we could use that, please reach out. Like I mentioned, right, the shared signals framework, right? I'm sure there's stuff with the Ceph formats and all the stuff that I don't even know about. And let's just fix this shit because it's not going to get easier on any of us.